Okay. Um, I'll call this the year I killed them all, which I really didn't kill them all. The title's a little more provocative than the actual story. But this is about some coyote issues I had a couple years ago. When I first came out on this property, I didn't have sheep. I've had cattle out here for a little over 10 years. I'd been here a few years with the cattle, a lot of coyotes on the property, but never any big deal. Used to go out there and change the water. They'd walk along with you. Not too close, but I mean, they weren't real concerned, so they never really an issue. Never had any problems with my cows or calves with the coyotes. But I didn't live out here at the time. I just had cattle out here. So when I finally moved out here, I brought sheep with me. Just a small group. It was like 6 or 8 of them. And I'd had the sheep out here maybe 6 or 8 months, and then they started having their babies. And that all went smoothly. And I could leave the sheep just out. They would roam all over the place. Didn't bring them in at night or nothing like that. And like I said, had not had any trouble with the coyotes. There was always 1 or 2 coyotes out the back of the property. It was a little female, consistently was out there every year, but never any big trouble. But at this time, I'd had about 3 or 4 coyotes that were coming through the front of my property. One was really large, larger than any other coyote I'd ever seen. And we kind of figured he was part dog. He had some dog in him. His ears were a little. He had the head and face of a coyote, and had the shape, but was extremely tall. And when we tracked him, he actually had a coyote paw when he leaves his tracks. It's almost like a cat. They have a very stiff paw. Okay, so it's a very small print. I'm talking about western coyotes. The East Coast is entirely different. But a dog, when he steps, his foot spreads out. You can see the webbing. Every time he steps, his foot spreads out. The coyote doesn't. It's very tight. And so it looks like a cat print. So when this particular coyote, whatever you want to call him, when he run with another pack of 2, you could tell the difference between the 2 coyotes that were with him. Their prints were very small. His were wide. It always spread out really wide. He had a lot more weight on him. But you looked at his head, he was a coyote. And so then it happens. Look at, it's a crossbred animal. Probably a female was bred by either a regular dog or vice versa, whatever it was. But this thing had been coming through my property and harassing the dogs. He'd go out of his way, come under a fence, go along my dog yard, get my dogs barking, and then head out to the back of the property. And he'd been doing this for about a month. And I kept trying to figure out what my dogs were barking at. It used to happen around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I go out and I see this coyote walking along the fence, or running along the fence. And he did this 6 or 8 times, almost very consistent at the time, usually before lunch. And animals that do these things, they'll beat a path into the ground. I mean, they're just very consistent, they're very routine. Same thing with most of your animals. They have a consistent, they routinely go in this way or go to the water this way. They use the same path over and over. Very efficient that way. Well, I had no trouble with coyotes up to this point, and had this coyote dog thing fooling around for about a month. Well, I get up one morning, and my sheep are spread all over the place. Typically, they would be in this little yard area where they would sleep and get up in the morning and go graze. Well, they're spread all over the place. One's over there, and they're all kind of just standing around looking. And I go out to where they typically are, and I've got this 6 or 7 month old lamb. She's splayed out, cut open, gutted, and very little blood. I'll talk about that in another video. But she looked just like one of those cattle mutilations. Anyhow, I got a dead lamb on my hands. And so the area where it was, I could see the tracks. I could see where the coyote came in. They came in under the gate where that big one always does. Instead of going out to the property, he came into where the sheep are. You could see where he circled the cattle around several times. There was at least 2 of them, if not 3 coyotes. We could tell by the prints. But definitely this dog print going on. And they just came in, attacked this one, killed it, gutted it, and split. And so it's like, okay, now I got coyote problems. Like I said, up to this point, I always thought it was cool having the coyotes out there. And I still do. I still, to some extent. That year, I had to do a whole bunch of research. What was legal? What could I do? You can shoot them. But even before I knew how to call them, you'd spend all day out there waiting on these coyotes to show up, or getting up early, or being here at night, trying to pinpoint when these guys are coming around. And you can't do that if you got work to do, and it's time consuming. And so I only got a little bit better when I learned how to call them. And I'd actually killed 2 that way. So then I said, well, I had to change the way I ran the sheep. I had to lock them up at night, which I still do. And so before I go to work, I lock all the sheep up. But that year when all this happened, I remember the first time I'd seen it. I'm seeing more and more coyotes. And every night around 11:30, 12 o'clock, when I would head in after get all my chores and stuff done, I'd hear in the back part of the property, I'd hear these coyotes start doing their howling. And usually it always sounds like there's 20 of them, but there might only be like 2 or 3. So I figure there's at least 2 every time I hear this. Well, in the back of the property, I hear this about midnight, this group goes off. 10, 15 seconds later, this group way over here goes off. Then another 10, 15 seconds later, another group behind me. Another group, like in this whole city block area, there had to be 5 separate groups going off doing their howling. And figure there was 2 in each group. And there was probably more, but I'm just being conservative. And so, within earshot, and I mean fairly close, I was surrounded, our neighborhood here, this was surrounded with coyotes at this time. And I have a big beam light. There's a couple areas where I could actually, when that was going on, I could put my beam out there and you could pick up their eyes. In 2 of the places, I could see the front and the back of the property, I could see the coyotes out there. So, you could identify them. And I'm thinking, man, this is a lot of coyotes. I have nothing to base this on reference-wise. This had gone on, for quite a while. And that whole year this had been going on. And one day, I think it's late fall, it might be November, December, and I go out and I'm feeding the sheep, which were, at that point, I hadn't let them out yet. I let them out during the day. And I look out in the next pasture to my sheep. There's 6 coyotes laying there, just watching. Not 2 or 3, there's 6. And different color, they varied in color, not dramatically, but some were reddish, some were dark. One was almost black, but they're all coyotes. And I know the difference between a coyote and a dog. And I'm looking back now thinking, what the hell? I'm going to get ready to let these sheep out. And at the time, I think I might have had mothers and babies. There might have been about 18 sheep. And I'm going to let them right out in this group of 6 coyotes. And I'm like, well, no, I can't do this. Now I have to feed the sheep. I can't let them out to graze. I got to feed them because I'm worried about these 6 predators over here. So I go out and I got a little Ruger 1022 and clean that thing up, make sure I got my bullets ready and everything. And it had a scope on it. I never sighted this thing in. And I went out and did a little, I didn't even practice with it. I just made sure it was clean, it was firing. And a couple of days later, I saw the coyotes, and I'm, scoping them, getting up fairly close, shooting at them, and I'm not anywhere near them. And like I said, this thing wasn't sighted in, so I didn't do my due diligence. So the long story short, it took me another 6 months, maybe 4 to 6 months, and I'd shot 3 of them. I know I wounded a couple. And with all the shooting and all the hazing, whatever you want to call it, all the miss, I must have fired 10 separate instances where I'm firing on these coyotes. I didn't hit anything. But pretty soon, whoever was staying there on the place realized, okay, this guy's nuts with his 22. He can't hit us, but we better leave before he gets any better. So we pretty much got rid of the coyotes at that time. And so for about the next summer, for about a year and a half, I'd seen no coyotes out here. I don't even hear them hollering at night. The groups that were surrounding, that I mentioned, don't even hear that anymore. And so I'm thinking, okay, I killed a few, I got rid of a good batch. This is going to be okay, And I had spoke to a fish and game guy. I can't remember what department he's with. This is a fish and game. And I told him what my situation was, and he said, yeah, you should have more than a coyote or 2 in a 10-mile radius. I said, 10 miles? I got 6 in my backyard. He says, well, what do you have back there? I says, I got sheep. He says, dude, you got problems. And I found out what I could legally do, trap, kill, whatever. He showed me what my options were. So anyway, I get rid of most of these coyotes, chased off, killed off, whatever. The next year, the next year comes around, and we have levees on the side of the property where there's irrigation ditches. And they stand up maybe 3-4 feet above my pasture surface, my ground level. And, we also had a lot of squirrels out here. Well, these levees start coming apart. They're leaking. They're caving in. The guys the ditch tenders can't drive out there. They're bringing backhoes in. and this thing's coming apart all around me. And it was a real, back when we had water in California, these things were steeped. I mean, the water was right up to the top level. Wouldn't take much to blow these levees out. And I'm looking around, I'm trying to find out what's going on. It's all these squirrel holes they've carved their way through the, right about the water surface. They dig their holes through the other side of the levee. Well, that year our water level was really high. So it took all those squirrel holes, those new holes, filled them up with water, just perforated through the levee, pouring onto the property. I got leaks all over the place. And so we called the ditch people out, and they get it all straightened out. And the guy says, yeah, you got a squirrel problem. And I said, really? I wonder what happened. He says, well, don't you have any coyotes around here? You got to get some coyotes out here to limit your squirrel population. So since then realized that, yeah, I needed a couple of these coyotes. I should, get rid of the bad ones or whatever. But long story short, I got 2 coyotes back out there now, and they stay out there. I don't mess with them. If something comes up close, causes a problem, then I'll have to deal with it. But they pretty much stay out in the back. And as long as you have an existing group back there, go back to the power vacuum, as long as that group's back there and they're not causing me any trouble, that's perfect. Because if I lose them, they've already proven they haven't caused me any trouble. If I lose them, the next batch that comes in, they might cause me trouble. See, so now we get a little bit of a relationship going where they're good back there, I'm good up here, and everything's fine, and they're knocking the hell out of the squirrels. So it was good that I got rid of the coyote eventually, but it kind of bit me in the ass later on with all the levees coming down because all the squirrels were out of control. And so I'm not an animal rights guy or a big environmentalist or anything like that, but you can see I'd upset the environment that year when I kind of moved out all the coyotes. So now I always keep them around. Unless something comes up close, then we got to take care of it. But I just wanted to share that little story how a bad thing could get worse. But anyhow, hope that was entertaining.